what was a notable moment in the early stages of training initiation into Hermetics that really caught your attention? And I brought in a pretty lightweight one of just the value of concentration. And there's some other ones which are, earth-shattering type things, experiences for myself anyway. But I want to pass this one on to Mr. Philip Harris-Smith. Philip.
Well, the first really notable thing was the direct experience of Akasha. Now, I'd done before that, for example, I'd done, some basic Golden Dawn stuff with the Tatvik symbols, the Indian symbols. You use them as elemental doorways. And one of them is an Akasha symbol. And I'd had what I thought was Akashic experience by using that symbol as a doorway, going through it, that kind of thing. But when I actually got to do work directly feeling and working with Akasha via Bardon's training, it was a completely different deal. And in fact, I would go as far as to say that whilst it may be possible to work with Akasha via the Golden Dawn technique, I thought I was, but I didn't. It was something else. It was Akasha-ish, but it wasn't. It was still in the treasure house of images, really. And it was just that direct input of working with the Akasha. Once you've got the balance and it starts to manifest, and going along with that, with being at the center, the center of everything, and the Akasha thing at the center, all that kind of stuff. That was, and it was a constellation of things. I'll try to keep it concise. The center point of things as well. All that constellation of realizations that seemed to gel at a certain point in Bardon's training. That's when I knew. I mean, I suspected it, but that's when I knew for a fact that Bardon stuff is a different deal to what I'd been working with before. So that would be the Akasha, really, the whole thing like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, absolutely. That was. I mean, I've done a little lucid dreaming and out of body stuff and that in the past, and then this equilibrium Akasha depth point thing. Wow, that was something new and different. And so, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I found the thing. Let's keep going with that. So I'm going to ask Mr. David Paul Coleman. Would you like to comment, please?
Yeah, there's a couple of things actually that I can think of. One from step 4 and one from earlier than that, right? I can't remember at the moment. I'd have to look that up. So the one from step 4 is that we're developing these magical faculties through this training. We're connecting with the elements, and then we're basically equilibrating them astrally and so on. We're doing like a step-by-step process as we're going through this training, and we're acquiring these magical faculties as we progress through the steps as signposts for our progress, right? That's what they do, right? When you can manifest some of these magical faculties, like, for example, step 4, mental transference into objects and people, then that this is a sign. You've reached a signpost in your initiation that says you've completed this part of step 4, right? So the magical faculties are blossoms and flowerings of your work, but they're not the true prize. You move on from that to the next step, right? The true prize is the progress of initiation going on and on. And there was a moment in step 4 when I realized, all of these magical faculties that I'm developing and that people will develop when they do these exercises are actually all innate, normal, human things that we do all the time. It's just that they are undeveloped, and we are largely unaware that that is what they are. And for me, it was at step 4, the realization that I had been doing mental transference into other human beings all my life, but I had just not been doing it so deeply and with so much concentration and so much development and training I wasn't just I was just doing it superficially, but I was still doing that, and it was just because I was an empathic person that I was doing that naturally, because really the mental transference into other people and other things, other objects, is all about empathy, and your ability to empathize with something is your ability to mentally transfer your consciousness, your awareness into it. It's as simple as that. And I'd just been doing that all my life. And the realization that I've been doing it all my life was a key that sort of awakened in me this realization that, oh, all of these magical faculties are things that all human beings are doing all of the time. They just don't know they're doing it, and they haven't developed that ability. And they're not all that mysterious after that. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was earlier, probably early in step 2, or even in step 1, it probably was, when I realized that, yeah, it was in step 1. I can remember now. I can remember the connection I made when I realized that the system, the structure of the system that Bardon had created, while it reads like amazing in print, right? You just like it's been said, you read this work and you're impressed. If you've read any other occult works anywhere in the world that have been written by anyone, you're struck by how this is the voice of experience primarily that's speaking to you. And so there's the reading of it, right? But then there's the practice of it. And the practice of that reveals that the system is so beautiful. It's so perfectly structured. It's so well engineered, like it's built by a mechanic, because it was. And he was like, I love to tinker with his car, right? And so you see, you realize things like, oh, the step 1 exercises where you're practicing emptiness of mind are helping you with the step 1 physical exercises, which are telling you to be present in the moment. Because when you are present in that state of emptiness of mind, you are present in the moment at the same time. And you can then carry that out of that practice more into your daily life, the more you develop it, right? And all throughout initiation into Hermetics, you see this structure where each step is built to enhance not just the other parts of that step, the other aspects of that step, and to work with it and to be used with it in creative ways as well, once the magician figures how to do that. But also each step beyond that works with the steps below it, and so on in a continuous way, that it only really comes out in practice. You only really get this, you only really get the elegance of this system in practice. But all of these parts work together so perfectly well, and so beautifully for the practitioner, that it's something that it's something that I don't see talked about very much, right? That this system is very interactive. All of the parts are interactive. And that's why it's a very, very solid ascent.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a great response, man. I tell you, we're on fire this morning. Okay. Well, I'm going to throw the hot potato to Tanya from Falcon Books Publishing. Tanya, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, very interesting. I actually very concur with what David said, and had a very similar experience as well. Yeah, for me, I was definitely working with the mind, working with the void meditation really had a huge impact. Also, I'm a very practical person, so I like to see things working, and for me, Hermetics is about how can I use it in the real world? How does it work? And so for me, like what you saying with using concentration, it really helps to sharpen your mind. You also being present within the day, which is I think is so fundamental, and it's something I've written about a lot. Is the influence of the subconscious mind and how that affects your everyday living, and how people are asleep in the day, and to be waken up and to be aware and to be conscious, then you can enter into the power of that day and actually be able to um, live and react within your day within a present mind, rather than actually being subjected to the influences of your subconscious or subtle influences around you. So for me, that was a huge step for me, and to sort of go also to, when I started experience as well, go beyond the mind. And that to me was quite profound, when you can start observing the mind and realizing it's not you. And you're like, well, who the hell am I? What is this? Well, I've just got this program going on here, and it's not me. And for me, that was quite a revelation, to sort of break out of that mold. Also, secondly, like with David, I think steps 1, step 4 as well, working with the elements. I used to work as a teacher, so I don't know if also Philip, if you've ever used it in this way, because your teaching experience, but with students as well, sometimes I would work with the elements. So I'd use the energies or the influences of the elements as well to work with the class. So if I had a particularly very energetic class, maybe I'd want to calm it down a bit, or if I needed a bit of fire to kind of get the class going, I'd use those sort of run those energies through me, and then I would project it into the classroom. And that's also wonderful as a way to experimentation view, but on a practical level of using these elements. As well, I'd like to talk about Bob's 60 skills course, because his approach as well to step 4 is absolutely, and working with the 4 regions is absolutely ace. It's brilliant. It's really, I love one with Bob stuff. It's really concise and it's very clear. There's no, should I do this or should I do that? And it works, and I think that's why a lot of people get a lot of success very quickly with Bob, because of that reason. So with I used his approach with the 4 regions, and very, very, very powerful. Yeah. And I think as well, going back to equilibrium, elemental equilibrium, which is incredibly important for this path. And if you don't have that, then you really shouldn't be doing Bardons, because it will just mess you up. It will knock you over all over. And I always think that Bardon's approach is IIH is more like a university entrance. I think usually a lot of people who go into Bardon's probably been meditating for 15 years or a long time before they even get to Bardon's, because or at least have experience within different magical systems. Because to jump into it as I think for somebody who's never done any practice before, it's tricky. It's very difficult. You'll probably give up, or you'll find it too difficult, or it'll maybe do kind of jump around a bit. And I think so for me, I think in terms of equilibrium, step 4 and 4 regions is like amazing, and it really just balances you out completely, and a quick way as well, rather than obviously we keep on growing and developing ourselves, but it energetically, it kind of wipes out all those different all the influences that we're getting that can affect us in our soul mirrors or our everyday life, for me. So, and you just, with a complete sort of harmony. I don't know if Bob, if you'd like to kind of talk a little bit as well about your approach to the step 4. I wonder if you could sort of explain a little bit to people for what you're doing.
Sure. I owe this technique to Mark Rasmus, so let me be super clear about that. Equilibrium is a funny thing. Most people walk around in one state of disequilibrium or another pretty much all the time. And stacking the elements within the body, fire in the head, air in the chest, water in the abdomen, earth in the legs, is a lot like hitting the reset button. And the first time I did this was actually through a ritual system through the Golden Dawn. And I had at the time an outside practice area that I don't have anymore. And the charge there was built up pretty well. And I remember doing this and I hit the ground. I'd been practicing lots of these fiery, very electric kind of practices from Tantric Buddhism and the martial arts for years. And all of a sudden, everything balanced out and boom, my body got confused. So it said, all right, we're taking a nap. The next thing I know, I wake up on the ground. And then when I learned this from Mark through Bardon's system, it became useful. Because listen, ritual's great. You can do a lot of interesting things with the ritual, but it takes time. The stacking of the elements I got good enough at that I could just do it sitting in a chair in class. And that ability to spontaneously hit equilibrium, particularly when other people were stressed around me, was really interesting. Now again, I had to remember to do it when everybody was going bananas. But it resulted in a really odd scenario where all of a sudden, all right, you're calm in the midst of turmoil and you're looking around, observing your environment in a way that normally, because listen, everybody here is very empathic. If you weren't, you wouldn't be doing magic. Okay, fine. So for people like us in particular who have that tendency to be empathic all the time and absorb the kind of energy of the crowd, and it's easy to get carried away by that. Just the ability to hit the pause button on that for a moment, kind of like what David was talking about, and go, oh, okay, this is what's really happening. It was really an amazing gift. And again, I can't claim any particular creativity on this. I just took what Mark gave me and kind of put it together in a way that was easily accessible. But yeah, the ability to do that upon command is where, to me anyway, magic really hits the road. Okay, now I've got something useful that I can do with this that solves a problem. And that's where I think more people would be interested if they realized that was even a possibility for them. But I'm super happy you got something great out of it, Tanya. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome. Man, that was great. Thank you. And Bob, we've got you on the honk there. Do you want to have a look at the question? Have you got something to add there?
Yeah. Something that I missed out a lot on my early training that I only really started to revisit in the last few years when I got interested in alchemy, particularly after a series of conversations with Philip here. The early part of the book where they talk about the magic of water and charging, a bottle of water or a glass of water or whatnot. Everything in Bardon's system works from the Akashic to the mental to the astral very quickly, very well, very repeatably. But I used to spend a ton of time holding posture and doing all these other things in an effort to drive the energy into the physical. Until I started charging a bottle of water for 15 minutes before I engaged in a given practice. And then I would drink that. And then about 10 minutes into the practice would really hit hard. Now, whether that's a process of intention or astral energy permeating your cells or whatever that is, once I figured that out, practice became much more intense and much more time efficient. And there are a lot of gems like that in Bardon's books where it'll just be mentioned once, right, in this kind of offhand manner, and you might miss it. And for me, in the early stage, the importance of charging something, then eating it, that rite of Eucharist business, to carry the rest of the practices forward, ended up being really important and something that was super easy to glance over. So I would encourage anybody, whatever step you're on, whatever technique you're working on meditate, charge a glass of water regarding that technique for 10 or 15 minutes before you start practice. And you're going to find that if you drink that and then go into your practice is going to work much better than it would otherwise. And it was curious because it's true of all the techniques, whether it's mental or energetic. It's a really interesting thing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Great information. Appreciate it. James, you're up, sir. How would you like to comment?
Oh, so many good things already said. Yeah, I think for me, multiple things stood out. First of all, for step one, would be the different degrees of vacancy. Obviously, so obviously people will struggle for years. Maybe, did I get vacancy? Was that a fault? Was it really empty? But I think the thing is with vacancy of mind is that as you progress, it's one step forward, it's two steps back, or it's two steps forward and one step back, because as your vacancy increases, so does your awareness. So your awareness of far off thoughts also becomes better at spotting these things forming before they actually manifest before your mind and become a thought. So there is this thing of, you get better at spotting things, so therefore you get better at doubting your results, possibly, depending upon your personality. So for a lot of those people questioning themselves, they've probably already got the required result for them to move on, but instead they stay and doubt themselves because they can see these things forming on the peripheral. So that's one thing I noticed in my own practice with vacancy. And also with vacancy, I did a course in, I think it was 2012 in Europe, and it was a fascination, mesmerism, and presence course from a European lineage. Tanya and I did this. And one of the things there was a thing called presence. And it was one of the healing modalities of that practice. And very simply, it's like, if you just take a survey of your mind and your current state right now, and with all the things going on, and it probably feels very still. And then with these presence exercises, you would then you would increase your awareness of the texture of the moment, and get to a different stage of silence and awareness and presence. So you'd get to know the degrees of where you are in your day. That you don't just get silent, you don't just get still, you don't just get aware. There's a depth to this, and there's a graduation to this. So that in my early stages was really interesting, bringing it into Bardon's. Because okay, there's vacancy and there's vacancy. It's not just vacancy. There's a degree. It's an ongoing journey into that stillness. So that was one thing. Next part was the step 2 exercises with the visualization. Is that myself, I'm not a natural visualizer. I'm not someone who sees multicolor, technicolor, IMAX quality images in front of my eyes, and I never did. So for me, and I was also even told by some teachers, due to your astrology, you'll never be able to do this. But thankfully, my personality takes that as an invitation rather than something to quit on. So yeah, the visualization exercises, depending on who you are and how your mind works and the way you see the world, took me years, really, for me to actually get what people call visualization. I think in the mental, the clarity. So I would say with that taught me, regardless of where you're starting with those visualization exercises and your experiences, don't think you can't ever get there. It just requires you to not give up. So I'm still improving my clarity now. 15 years on from when I started, it's still getting better. So, but it took a long time of getting nothing before I got that progress to happen. The other thing I'd say is, I think everyone's mentioned step 4. Step 4 is a kind of a goalpost or a stage where you're moving from the beginning bits into the intermediate bits. And depth point was obviously a huge part, which comes into the next stage. But from the equanimity, you're sometimes then dropping into depth point. So once you're doing step 4 and step 5, I would do the regions, and then I would drop into the depth point in the solar plex and go on journeys there. So that really started to bring in, oh, this is now becoming real. You know, this is not just some mental gymnastics. This is now becoming an experiential thing that I didn't have before. So that was awesome. The final thing I will say is that what I found is that as I was reaching these stages or experiences, what was so useful was using the rituals, the hand gestures, to then anchor these experiences. Because I didn't want to, you know, I'm a bit lazy. I don't want to go through the stages of trying to work my way back up again. So to then have these experiences and then to anchor these to specific hand gestures so that I can get back to them much easier. And then I can have that as an energy signature to get back to the state and then increase the potency of that experience and then anchor it again and so on. So this is a method I use to keep on moving and keep on moving quickly so that I could regain my previous experience and go deeper.